What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is the Blacklist, Season 7, Episode 13, Newton Purcell. Yeah, still not a good one. It really feels like since the mid-season finale, this has just been... The show's just kind of gone downhill, and it's stuff that in the middle of a season, if a bunch of other interesting stuff was going on the outside, these are stories that I might find a little bit more kind of fun and just sort of, whatever, we're just enjoying ourselves. Like the whole thing with Glenn, I might find that funny if it were on another episode, where we actually had more to dig into outside of that. But the fact of the matter is, that is the one of the biggest stories in this episode, alongside Aram and his little thing, which I really don't give a crap about because I still think Aram is a terrible person for what he's been doing this whole time. And it's not getting any better. In fact, we're finding out that she's also a terrible person in all of this, because that was the one thing was, okay, Aram's not being a good guy in all of this. He should stay out of it. It's way too complicated. But I felt like I kind of understood her point of view, like that would be difficult, but now we see she's just in it for the money. He sees the thing. The only reason she stayed with him is because she wouldn't get any sort of alimony. There would be no financial compensation if she divorced him. So that's why she stayed with him the whole time. She didn't love him. She wanted his money. And then Aram came along and she was like, "Oh, cool, a plaything. Something I can have sex with since I can't have sex with him anymore. Cool." So now she's even a terrible person in this. She's not sympathetic. There's no reason to feel for her. She's also a terrible person. Nice. So now that whole storyline is just a bunch of terrible people involved. But yeah, the Glenn thing, like, it could have been funny if it wasn't such a big part of this episode. Because everything with Reddington right now, and first of all, again, I don't even know what he's doing. It seems like he's just working on getting a bunch of money. He sells the casket stuff in the last episode, gets a bunch of money for that. And in this one, he gets that truck to sell to these possibly CIA people for a bunch of money. Like, it just feels like he's just going around, all right, well, let's get this and let's sell it. Let's get this and let's sell it. That's not interesting. How is that more interesting than him trying to take down these big evil people? Like, it makes no sense. So I don't know. I don't know what the writing team was thinking. Did they just decide, hey, you know what, let's just take this second half of the season off? Like, is it anything of interest going to happen in the second half of the season? Because so far, it feels like it's just a bunch of random stuff happening that's sort of just, again, we're biding our time until eventually something does happen. So I'm kind of frustrated. That this show seems to be not really sure what it wants to do next. Because when I saw there were 3 seasons left, I'm thinking, okay, where's this gonna go? What's gonna happen next? What next threat is gonna come along? Like, where are we going now? And it felt more so like, okay, well, we're just gonna take a break from this and we'll come back to it later. And I don't like that feeling. I prefer to feel like I'm looking forward to something exciting. So we'll see what happens with all of that stuff. As far as the Blacklister in this episode, guy who dealing with hearing loss, blames people, kills them with sound. Basically it. Not really that interesting either, in my opinion. So, just, yeah. Don't really care. I will say Park is still kind of interesting to see what's going on with her. What is causing her to freak out the way she does. What happened in Anchorage. I hope we get those answers soon. Who knows? Maybe that'll become the focus soon. And then Liz hires a detective or PI to look for Ilya Kozlov. So that happened. Very small thing. She just randomly, oh yeah, I'm looking for somebody and can't find him. Hired a PI. All right, we're done. Cool. I guess we moved a pawn forward in our game of chess. Can't wait to see what happens next. Are we gonna move another pawn forward? That's how slow it feels like this game is going. But anyways, yeah, I'm definitely not enjoying these episodes right now, but we'll see if it gets any better. On to the next one. And now episode 14, Twami Ulak. So if you notice the different shirt and if the background like shifted slightly, it's because I took a nap. Really, I went to sleep. So yeah, it's a different day. But yeah, this one, a little bit better. It's still frustrating that we're not really focused on a main plot going forward. It still feels like Reddington's sort of meandering, doing a bunch of random stuff. Liz, it still feels like she's sort of meandering, doing different stuff. But at least we got a little bit more information about Park in this episode, so that was something better, something more enjoyable for me. And it does raise a lot of questions about what exactly she did near the end of her time in Anchorage, because now we know a little bit more about what was going on, with this guy, Lucier, and her mom and all of that. But based on Cooper's reaction, I don't know, it seems like she did something pretty bad. I don't know if it was murder. I don't know if it was torture. I don't know exactly what. I mean, obviously we saw what she nearly did to the Frankie earlier this season. So yeah, I don't know. It definitely seems like she did something pretty brutal that would get Cooper to even sort of go to Keen and say, are we sure we want to keep her on? Because based on what they do, who they're working with currently, the fact that even he's like, I don't know about this, means it has to be something pretty brutal. So I wonder if we'll ever figure out exactly what that is. Maybe we'll end up seeing a flashback where we actually see what happened. But it was a good episode for her to kind of get to know more about her. It's not without its flaws though, because the way it ended was pretty silly. Yeah, I don't know if it was just an editing error, but this is the second time. Well, was last episode the one where Charles died? I don't remember. But it makes me think back to that one moment where Elodie was like, call 911, pulls out her phone and calls 911 herself. That it was such a weird editing error. In this one, you've got this whole scene where she gives Lucier the bullets for the gun, and she's like, I'm going to go get help and I'll be back. And then they cut to the camp for Twami, and the FBI attack, and they manage to capture him, and they're like, hey, where is she? They get the little radio notification, and then cut back, and Twami's men are coming up on Lucier and Park, who's still there. What? Like, did they capture her and bring her back, and we just missed that part? What happened? It just, I don't know. It seems so strange. I couldn't tell if she just never left, even after she said she was going to get help, or if she did leave to go get help and then they found her and brought her back under gunpoint. They never really confirmed that. She was just back there with them. Because it was just the way it was set up. The guy walks up with the gun. He's like, well, this isn't a good hiding spot. And then the guy, holds up his gun. He's like, whoa, hang on, I can help you. And then he says something about, I can tell you something about her. Like she's not, or I can give you information about her, something along those lines. And then it cuts to her face. And I'm just like, wait, is she there? I thought she left to go get help. It just really, it threw me off. I didn't really know what was going on with that, but yeah, it feels like the editing errors are becoming a little bit more prominent this season. A little bit more noticeable, kind of some stupid stuff that I wouldn't expect to see in a show like this. So I feel like the quality is just starting to go downhill, unfortunately. Stuff with Ram kind of does come to a bit of a conclusion in this episode. We don't really know what he found out about what happened with Charles. He gets the information back from Charles' blood work. I'm guessing that he found some information that connected to a blacklister that she had told him about or something along those lines, and she used that information, to kill him. I don't know. But clearly he definitely, I guess he definitely found the information he needed to convict her of killing her husband. Finding out that the whole thing inside the Fleur de Mal, where she was in the cage, was apparently part of her plan. I don't really know how much of that is true. Because the one guy, based on his look, he looked like he just got away with something. He walked out of the room with like this big smirk on his face, like, I just tricked him. So I don't know if this is all just not true, because even her reaction at the end of the episode, it seemed genuine. And maybe she's just that good of a liar. Maybe she doesn't She's so good at lying that she even believes her own lie. But most of the time, whenever somebody's caught in this situation, they do tend to go, okay, you know what? Well, I guess you figured it out, so oh well. But she still seemed like she was very upset that she was being arrested, and it seemed like she really didn't understand what happened and why she was being arrested. So I don't know. It's it's something that adds a little bit of mystery to this whole story, but it's not like it makes it any better. I still, even if she didn't do it, even if this guy is setting her up to like get back at her or something for everything that happened, I still don't really care, because Aram is still kind of a terrible person for what he did. Sleeping with her while her husband was still alive and in the other room. I still don't like this storyline. So I don't know why we're spending so much time on it. It's become kind of the main focus for the second half of the season so far. And again, whenever you've got Katerina Rostova just out and about, and just she faked her own death, and it seemed like, oh, okay, well, what's going to happen with her next? And now we're just not even talking about her. It kind of sours my taste on the second half of the season a little bit, because there are so many other things I would rather be doing than following Aram's love life with a married woman who may have killed her husband, may not have. I don't know. Well, I can't really think of anything else. Wrestler and his brother, that never got resolved, so don't know what's going on there. I guess the other thing to talk about is what happened with Twami and all these people. I do like it whenever this show does bring up real things that happened in our history, that little sketchy, something that you kind of have to look at and say, yeah, stuff like this could be happening. Stuff with the government screwing over the citizens. It happens. And that's... I like it whenever they have something like Operation Bathwash? Bath something? Wash Tub? Wash Tub. I think it was Operation Wash Tub. But something like that, where all of these Native Americans in Alaska were trained and promised all this stuff by the government, and basically after the Cold War ended, they're just like, you know what? Never mind. We're gonna move on. Yeah, it's something that the government does. They will do things for their own self-interest, and then whenever it's not in their self-interest anymore, they don't have any obligation to carry through on what they promised. So it's like a politician saying something, yeah, I'm going to fight for you in office, I'm going to get this done, and then they get in the office, and now they have no obligation to do what they said they were going to do because they got what they needed. They got elected. It's pretty simple. All you have to do is just say you'll do something, and so many people in this country are like, I believe you. It's kind of nuts. But anyways, I'm not going to go into a whole political rant right now because I'm still kind of tired because I didn't sleep well. So on to the next episode. I'll see you there. And now episode 15, Gordon Kemp. So still a little frustrated again because, we did take steps toward a bigger picture story in that Dembe and Reddington found out about the private eye that Elizabeth hired. So a slight step in a more, I guess, consistent story direction and not just having Reddington do whatever. And the case in this episode was just sort of okay. It wasn't anything super intriguing. It was basically just gun seller sells to criminals, trying to stop him, and obviously tackling a lot of the whole gun control stuff that was going on around like 2019, 2020 time, all of those conversations. However, the two things that I feel like kept me a little bit more invested in this episode, first of all, the back and forth between the team and Reddington, because I really do, as much as I like watching them work together and, figuring out how to take down the bad guys, it also is very interesting whenever the team has to go up against Reddington in a situation where he's trying to do something that they don't want him to do. Even if it necessarily, from their point of view, it might be the right thing in their eyes, it's against the law, and they have to try to stop anything that's against the law. And in this case, what the gun seller was doing was not against the law, what Reddington was trying to do is. So I kind of liked that dichotomy a bit, and it's very rare that Reddington gets outsmarted, but in this case, I had to applaud Cooper, because that was an ingenious move. And I even had the thought, because when the whole exchange happened between Liz and Red on the phone, I did have the thought of like, okay, so this seems to be going fairly straightforward. And I even had the other thought earlier that maybe Reddington wasn't going to actually steal the guns. He was going to do something else that would incriminate the seller, Kemp, and make him, look guilty of selling something else beside guns. Like maybe they thought he was going to steal the guns, and all of a sudden they open up the trucks and there's also like tons of cocaine or something on there, and so he gets arrested for that or something along those lines. So whenever he told Elizabeth he wanted to steal the guns, I was like, okay, so that's not going to happen. So they're not subverting our expectations that way. And then Liz basically confirms that she's the one guarding the guns. And of course, we're seeing the whole wreck happen in the setup so they can steal them. And that's when it kind of hit me. I'm like, wait, Cooper actually played this whole thing, didn't he? Like, he convinced Liz that she had the guns, but she doesn't have them, does she? So whenever that whole reveal happens and Wrestler shows up with the guns in Chicago, I was like, okay, yeah, that's pretty smart from Cooper. And it was kind of a fun little game of chess to watch. So that caught my interest. It was something that the writing on it was clever. It was a little different than what we're used to seeing. So that was good. Also, similar to the episode that involved the lady making all the men pregnant, it wasn't. It does lean a little bit more. Most of these shows have a bit more of a liberal leaning. Basically every show I watch does. However, this one, I feel like out of all of the shows that I watch, this one tends to show both sides pretty well. Again, the gun seller in this episode, he's the bad guy. So that's your more liberal left leaning, where, oh yeah, these guys that sell guns, they're terrible people. They're all like they do make them seem like they're all just a bunch of, I like having guns and I like having power. Woo, yeah, don't tread on me. Like, that's the part of it that I kind of have to roll my eyes and go, okay, this is a little cliche. But they don't just necessarily say he's the bad guy and gun control is 100% good. We need to have gun control. Just get rid of guns altogether. They don't necessarily go that route. You have Wrestler on the team who is a member of the NRA. He talks about that, but he still doesn't support what this guy is doing, essentially giving guns to criminal. And I think most people that are more conservative, they would agree, yeah, we don't want guns sold to criminals. Now, of course, this is where the whole gray area and the argument and the debate starts, but I like the fact that they are showing that, yes, this guy is a bad guy, and that's why he needs to be stopped. And even Reddington, he uses guns all the time, and he talks about how gun shippers and all of this, like, those are people he really respects. But this guy is not somebody who, he's just manufacturing guns. He's just, making guns so people can protect themselves. So all of this, he's making them specifically so that criminals can shoot people on the streets, and then that raises the whole, like, oh, we need to buy more guns. And it's almost like a more marketing scheme for him if criminals have guns and can shoot innocent people. And that's where Reddington is not okay with it. And I do appreciate that, because it's not necessarily a point of view that most of these shows would take. Most of them would just say, no, he's selling guns to people. He's a bad guy. We need to stop him. Kind of what Supergirl did whenever they found out, the DEO found out that the gun manufacturer that they were buying from was also, that one of their guns ended up in the hands of a criminal. And they were just like, yeah, we don't care who ends up with it. We're just making it all. That's all that matters to us is money, money, money. And then they're like, oh, well, we'll just make our own weapons because we have a super genius. And that's it. That's a real life strategy, guys. Don't buy guns because you can just make your friend genius make you guns that stun people. Supergirl is something else, man. But yeah, I do appreciate that this show actually took a much more middle of the road take on all of this topic. Is it a little frustrating that we have to take a break from, well, I guess to be fair, we're not really taking a break from a main plot because we've not had much of a main plot recently. But it is a little frustrating that they felt the need to have a couple episodes where it's like, oh, we're going to take a stand on something and we're going to have, the whole principle thing and all of that stuff. Okay, whatever. But at the very least, they made parts of it entertaining and they didn't lean heavily toward one side. They tried to show both sides and they tried to make, yes, the extreme on one side look like a bad guy, but at least they showed he is an extreme. Wrestler is much more your typical person. Gordon Kemp is the extreme side of, oh no, we just want to make money selling guns. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it. Obviously, I don't know if not a lot of people watch my videos anyway, but I'm not trying to get into a debate about gun control or anything. I appreciate the fact that there is a show out there that does seem to not necessarily say one side is bad or the other. They show that there are some bad people on one side, but not all of them are bad. And it's very rare in shows these days to do that. So, but yeah, I think that's about it. I mean, like I said, they did take a small step forward. The private eye that was hired by Liz, Reddington now knows. And of course, he also knows that she's looking into Ilya Kozlov. So, I don't know what's going to happen with that. Again, I feel like I've seen this before where Red figures out that Liz has been lying to him this whole time, and now obviously he still cares about her for whatever reason, even though he's not Kozlov. I don't know if we're ever going to figure out who he actually... Well, I mean, of course, we are going to figure out who he actually is, but I don't know. There's just something about the fact that, okay, so when it was Ilya, it made a lot of sense why he was so willing to put his life on the line for Masha because of how much he cared for Katerina. But now that he's not Ilya, I'm just like, well, then who the hell is this guy? Because of all the men in Katerina's life, I can't... Reddington was her husband. I think husband. At least, it was Elizabeth's father, but he's dead, so it can't be him, unless he's not dead, and we just... I don't know, somehow he survived. I don't know how that would happen. But that was one option, but that's been seemingly put to bed. Ilya made a lot of sense because of who he was to Katerina, but that's not an option before because now we know who the real Ilya Kozlov is. And we don't know any other men in Katerina's life outside of her dad. And then, of course, we know this Townsend guy who wanted her dead. But, I can't imagine he would be Townsend because then because he doesn't really... I don't know. Does he want Katerina dead? It's really hard to tell. And it doesn't make sense to me that somebody who really wants Katerina dead would also want to protect her child. That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me unless... I don't know, somehow he is more connected to Katerina than we know. There's a lot of theories about that are kind of just up in my head, floating around as we're getting slightly more information about it. But, yeah, on the face of it right now, that whole him not being Ilya really throws a wrench into a lot of the ideas I had about Reddington. And now it's just kind of like, well, I have no idea who this guy is then. So I'm assuming maybe we'll get some more information about Katerina's life as we go on. Maybe we'll find out somebody else that knew her really well and trusted her and loved her. And maybe it's going to turn out to be like some childhood friend that she had that grew up and like kind of stayed in the shadows for a while and decided to become Raymond Reddington to protect her and her daughter or whatever. But yeah. So all in all, though, it's a better episode. These last two, they had more... They were still not good, in my opinion. They were still very downgraded from what I'm used to seeing the Blacklist being. This interesting, intricate show that's written smartly and has all these different moving pieces that are really fun to watch as they move around the board throughout the season. It's a real downgrade to just basically go to, nope, we're just having these random things happen that are happening in Reddington's life right now, and that's how we're just randomly getting these blacklisters and stuff. I don't know. I'm really disappointed that they felt the need to go this direction with it, that they couldn't just keep a good main story going, because what they had with Katerina and the Townsend Directive and everything to do with Ilya and who Raymond Reddington is, they had that interesting story, and they could have built upon that, not necessarily given us all the answers if you want to try to stretch it out over the next few seasons, but at least keep us going down that path. Let us see everything Liz is doing to try to figure out the truth about Reddington. Let us see what Katerina's doing in the shadows to try to help Liz in this process, if she is helping her at all. Maybe what's his name, Bertie Chernov, I think is his last name, the guy that was Gregory Flynn. Somehow him being involved. Maybe we see him talking to Liz. Maybe he's the go-between between the two of them. Just something to make me feel like, okay, so there is a point moving forward. What's Reddington's point after now, or after all of that happened? Because clearly when he found out about the Townsend directive, he went to warn Katerina about it, and then she kidnapped him. And so now it's kind of like, okay, so does he want her to live or does he not want her to live? And now that she's dead, what is he trying to do? Like, what is his point in life? Because it felt like maybe it was just protecting Liz and maybe trying to protect Katerina at the same time. But now that Katerina's gone, is he just protecting Liz? Because if so, he's just sort of goofing around doing whatever. It doesn't seem like he's really involved in her life right now. So, I don't know. Just a little frustrated. Hopefully something changes in these final, because I think there's only 4 episodes left. I want to see an improvement. I want to see steps being taken towards something more entertaining and more cleverly written. So that's it for me. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these 3 episodes? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all the good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe, future Blacklist reviews, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.